The red chestnut by the gate. The autumn sun had already slipped low behind the pines when Anna called from the porch. "Sam! Lily! Not too far down the lane, please." Her voice was not harsh, but it carried an edge that cut through the children's laughter. They were only a couple dozen yards away, chasing each other around the sagging fence line, but Anna's eyes kept darting toward the gravel road beyond. She pictured the blind curve where the lane bent, imagined a truck barreling too fast, imagined her children darting after a ball or a stick, and the unthinkable happening before she could reach them. The children slowed. Sam, nearly 12, long-legged and restless, muttered something Anna couldn't catch. His sister Lily, smaller by 4 years and far less guarded, let out an exaggerated sigh and dragged a stick through the dirt on her slow return, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Anna forced a smile when they trudged back into the yard. It sat wrong on her face, too taut to be convincing. She wished she could let them go, wished she could trust the quiet lane that wound through the fields, wished she could relax into the kind of mother who leaned on the porch rail, content to just listen to her children's voices drift across the dusk. But ever since the accident, every glimpse of freedom looked like danger. 2 years ago, at the miller's place, the pond had nearly swallowed Lily. Anna could still hear the shriek that had torn from her throat when she saw her daughter's small body pulled limp from the water, her hair clinging in strands, her lips the color of ash. She could still feel the earth tilt beneath her as the neighbor pressed rhythm into Lily's chest, as Anna begged the world not to end. Lily had lived. By some grace she had lived. Coughing water, crying weakly, her heartbeat finding its way back. Within days she was pink-cheeked again, singing to her dolls in the hospital bed, as though the river of death had never carried her so near its banks. But Anna had not walked out of that hospital with her daughter. Not completely. Some part of her was still kneeling by the pond, still hearing the silence between heartbeats, still seeing how quickly love could be snatched away. Their farmhouse stood at the edge of town, where the pavement frayed into gravel. The field stretched outward in rolling gold, and at night the sky opened wide with stars. It should have been the kind of place where children roamed barefoot until the supper bell, where twilight smelled of cut hay and crickets sang a steady chorus. Instead, it had become a stage where Anna's fears performed daily. The oak in the yard, once a playground, now seemed a death trap with every gust of wind. The shed, filled with tools Mark had collected over the years, looked to Anna like a den of fangs. Even the sweet pond lilies on the neighbor's land were stained in her memory as harbingers of loss. She disguised her vigilance as care, but her family could feel the choke of it. Mark, her husband, carried the weight quietly. He was a man of patience, his words measured, his hands steady. He fixed tractors, mended fences, and never complained when life grew heavy. But lately, Anna had caught him watching her with an expression she didn't recognize. Something between weariness and grief. He never accused, never scolded, but his silence was its own mirror. It was on a Wednesday afternoon, bright and crisp, with the smell of apples and wood smoke, that Anna found herself at Mrs. Calder's cottage. The cottage sat at the crossroads where 2 narrow lanes met, ivy crawling up its stone walls, its chimney forever breathing a faint curl of smoke. Everyone in town knew the old woman. She kept a garden half wild with herbs and flowers, a place where bees drifted heavy with pollen and paths seemed to wander on their own accord. People said she carried old knowledge. No one could define it exactly, but if you had a trouble you couldn't quite name, somehow you found yourself at her crooked blue door. Anna hadn't meant to go, not really. She told Mark she was dropping off eggs. Calder had always wanted eggs. But her heart was thudding too fast when she knocked. The door opened before she finished her second knock. "Anna," Mrs. Calder said, as though she had been expecting her. Her gray hair was coiled in a loose bun, her eyes sharp, yet kind. "Come in, dear." The cottage smelled of dried lavender and something faintly woody, like resin. Sunlight fell through lace curtains, catching on dust motes that turned the air to gold. They sat at a small wooden table scarred with use. Anna tried small talk about the weather, about the bean harvest, but the words tinkled in her throat. Her hands twisted in her lap. At last she said, in a voice that broke halfway through, "I can't stop seeing it. Every time they leave the yard, I think, what if I lose them? What if it happens again?" Her confession hung heavy in the warm air. Mrs. Calder studied her, not rushing to fill the silence. Then she rose, moved to a tall cupboard, and returned with a small brown bottle. Its label was handwritten in faded ink. "Red Chestnut," she said simply, setting it between them. Anna blinked. "A tincture?" "A flower essence," Calder corrected softly. "Not medicine as you'd think of it. It's more like a reminder for the heart." Anna turned the bottle in her hands. The glass felt warm from Calder's palm. "What does it do?" "It helps when love has tied itself too tightly to fear," Calder said. "Helps you love without smothering. Helps you let others walk their own path without imagining every shadow will swallow them." Anna swallowed hard. Her throat felt too narrow. "It won't erase what happened," Calder continued, "but it may help you carry it differently." That night, Anna placed the little bottle on her nightstand. She didn't tell Mark. She barely admitted to herself that she might try it. She lay awake, listening to his breathing, the house creaking around them, her thoughts circling like wolves. In the morning, when Lily tugged at her sleeve, begging to go with Sam down to the creek, Anna's chest seized the way it always did. She saw water swallowing her child again, felt her own lungs claw for air. And something in her whispered, "Try." So she did. She filled a glass with water, added a few drops as the label instructed. The taste was faint, almost nothing, like a memory of flowers carried on wind. She sat with it, closed her eyes, waited. Nothing miraculous happened. The fear did not vanish. But when the children raced out the door, she found herself pausing long enough to notice the sunlight spilling across the yard, the way Sam's laughter pulled Lily along like a kite, pausing long enough to take one full breath before calling them back. And that breath was different. It was space. The days that followed were uneven. More than once, Anna still shouted from the porch until her throat ached. More than once, Lily stormed into the house, cheeks red with anger, and slammed her door. More than once, Sam muttered that she was smothering them. But Anna also began walking the yard at dusk, and instead of calling them down from the oak, she let herself watch. Her heart pounded as they climbed higher, but she didn't see branches breaking. She saw two children silhouetted against the sky, reaching upward as if for the clouds themselves. Mark noticed it first. "You're quieter," he said one evening as they shelled beans on the porch. His rough hand brushed hers. "Different." "Am I?" Anna asked, hesitant. "You let them go down to the creek today." "They came back wet and grinning," she said, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. Mark chuckled. "That's what children are supposed to do." It was not the bottle alone. Healing never is. It was also the walks Anna began taking by herself, down the paths through the fields where tall grasses whispered secrets, where hawks wheeled high and free. It was the prayers she spoke aloud during those walks with no one but God and the birds to hear her. It was the nights she let herself remember the accident fully, not shoving it away, but letting the tears come, letting the grief breathe. It was the practice, slow, daily, of choosing love without chains. One evening in late spring, Anna stood by the garden while Lily darted barefoot after fireflies. Sam was farther off, practicing with a new fishing pole Mark had given him, his silhouette tall against the river glow. The sky blazed violet. The first stars trembled awake. Fear stirred in her belly, as always, a familiar clench. But this time she did not grip it tighter. She let it pass through her, breathed until it softened. She remembered the miracle of Lily's tiny heartbeat beneath her palm, the way life had returned, and she let that memory live in gratitude rather than terror. The children's laughter rose into the dark. Anna closed her eyes, lifted her face to the air scented with lilac and earth. Somewhere in the hedgerow, chestnut blossoms blushed faintly red. For the first time in years, she whispered not a plea, but a thank you. Anna never became carefree. That was not her nature. But she became something steadier, present. She learned to carry both fear and love in the same hands, to stand at the gate and watch her family walk down the lane and to wave instead of calling them back. And in that waving, her children ran farther, laughed louder, shone brighter, for they knew at last that their mother's love was a gift, not a tether. And so Anna's journey reminds us that love, when bound too tightly to fear, can become a cage. But with patience, prayer, and the quiet support of nature, she found a way to hold her family with open hands instead of clenched fists. The flower essence Red Chestnut is often used in just this way, to help ease the heart's anxious grip on those we cherish, so that love can flow freely again. Stories like Anna's remind us how deeply the plants can guide us. If you'd like to hear more stories of the flower essences, please subscribe and share this story with someone who might need it today. And if you're familiar with Red Chestnut flower essence, feel free to share your story with us in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.